Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Metal Meltdown. Today we are talking about the latest studio album from Hellripper entitled Warlocks, and Withered Hags. This is the third studio album from this Scottish blackened speed and thrash metal project headed up by one James McBain, who handles everything from guitar to bass to percussion to vocals, songwriting, production, mastering. I wouldn't even be shocked to learn that this was recorded in his home, perhaps on instruments that he had built himself by hand, on a mixing board he had built himself by hand. He's a very DIY kind of guy, aside from some outside contributors helping behind the scenes. You know, the bulk of the work is being done by James McBain and James McBain alone. An absolutely massive undertaking for sure. I remember during those early months of COVID quarantine back in 2020, every motherfucker on the planet was like, this is the time, I'm gonna finally make that album I've always wanted to make. And some people did, to be fair, but if you're anything like me, then you probably just spend a lot of time playing Red Dead Redemption and never actually got around to it. So, props to James right off the bat. Dude is mad talented. Speaking of COVID quarantine, the first time I came to know Hellripper was through the release of The Affair of the Poisons back in early 2020, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Exhilarating, over-the-top, blackened speed and thrash metal, very old school, very badass, very brutal. A lot of Nawabum worship and old school Megadeth and Metallica style riffage, but filtered through sleazy, crusty, in-your-face, blackened energy and mayhem. Quite frankly, it was probably the first time in a long time that any kind of old-school style thrash or speed metal record had really stood out to me in a really substantial and interesting way. As such, I've been pretty pumped for Warlocks, and Withered Hags. There was no doubt in my mind that Hellripper would release another tasty platter of well-seasoned, old-school metal manacy and such, but what I was not anticipating was that Hellripper would go above and beyond the Call of Duty and expand in every possible way. The songwriting, for instance, both in terms of the lyricism and the actual music, the actual songcraft, is a lot more ambitious. Lyrically, we're dealing a lot more with Scottish folklore and history and mythology. Musically, the Nawabum and the thrash and speed metal worship very much remains, but it's all been amped up and refined and polished to hell. The production is more cinematic, more robust, more dynamic. To simply say that the album is fun and brutal and cool would be a severe, almost criminal understatement. This album is exhilarating. This album is fucking gnarly, and all the while it feels extremely important. Put very, very simply, Warlocks, and Withered Hags is Hellripper's best album to date. It's not even close, with all due respect to everything else that James has done beforehand. And I would even make an argument that this is probably the best thing, or one of the best things that I have heard so far in 2023. The opening track, The Knuckle of E, for instance, is explosive, urgent, intense, downright bloodthirsty, with demonic, acidic vocal spats and some of the tightest and some of the fastest riffery I think I've seen in an opening number so far this year. It absolutely pounds and pummels away with fast-paced, thrashy grooves and beatdowns, soaring guitar licks and solos, and literal vocal vomit spewing everywhere, as if it's being shot out of a sprinkler. Then there's the following track, I the Deceiver, which starts things off with some more mysterious and mystical guitar noodling, taking time to establish some genuine mood and atmosphere, before then launching into probably some of the most righteous riffery that Metallica and Megadeth never wrote. If Midnight ever traveled back in time to the mid-late 80s and hired Dave Mustaine, I promise you, this is the kind of music they would have made. Similarly, Goat Vomit Nightmare reeks of a kind of greasy, sleazy, drunken debauchery and energy that I absolutely would have expected from bands like Venom and Motorhead way back in the day. Granted, it's much more crazy, much more frantic, much more brutal than anything that Venom or Motorhead would have made, but you know, it has that same kind of vibe, that same kind of je ne sais quoi. Like, for real, folks, I dare you to listen to that lead riff and those solos and licks all throughout the track and tell me that if slowed down just a little bit, they wouldn't have fit on Ace of Spades or Welcome to Hell. I dare ya. I actually, truly fucking dare ya. And before you start saying in the comments, I don't know, Robert, kinda just sounds like a bunch of old school 80s metal worship. I don't know, it kinda sounds like these guys are just jerking off to, like, Metallica and Megadeth and Venom and Motorhead. Shut the fuck up. I mean, you're not wrong, but you're not right either, so shut the fuck up. The title track Warlock Grims and Withered Hags, for instance, is a shape-shifting creation of epic metal proportions. It's bold, it's unpredictable, it's beautiful, filled with some incredible guitar playing, some ferocious vocals. They even managed to bring in some Scottish bagpipes, and it's awesome. The closing track, though, Mester Store Worm, somehow goes even harder, somehow gets even weirder, with more thrashy riffs, more blackened spices, more Nawabum worship arranged and played in almost smorgasbordian fashion. They even save room for some death metal influence right in the middle of this number with some booming gutturals, some more sinister guitar licks, and some really punishing beatdowns. The actual climax of the song, too, shows Hellripper going almost full-blown folk metal with some dazzling, gleaming guitar leads, some really great woodwinds and string arrangements. What more can I say, man? I fucking love this record. James put his all into this thing, and it consistently fucking shows. Everything is perfectly arranged, perfectly produced, it kicks ass, it doesn't waste time, it doesn't fuck around, there's no fat, no filler whatsoever. Nothing I would cut, nothing I would change, even some of the more atypical kind of like thrash and speed and heavy metal stuff is still so much fun. Take, for instance, the Cursed Carrion Crown, which, you know, for a bit is literally just hypercharged thrash, or the Hissing Marches, which, you know, at times is just hypercharged punky Motorhead shit. I don't care. It's so well done, and it's so much fun, and it feels just fresh enough because there's also still just a lot going on. I'm feeling a very strong 4.5 out of 5, dangerously close to a 5 out of 5. Had there been some kind of emotional reaction or connection, maybe we would be looking at a 5 out of 5. Maybe. It's certainly more than worthy already of one, but I do try to save that score for like something really special and touching. Irregardless, I don't think anyone's gonna argue too much. I mean, it's just a fucking incredible record. It's fucking awesome. It never stops being fun. It never stops being badass. It never stops throwing all kinds of cool stuff at you. I mean, I've listened to it a few times now, and with each and every listen, I feel like I'm discovering more and more about this album and how it works and the stories that it's telling. Absolutely massive round of applause for James McBain. Holy goddamn shit. This is one of those rare occasions on the Metal Meltdown where I'm like, hey, if you don't like this, it's because you're boring. Straight up. I mean, hey, to each their own, yeah, but also, you're kind of boring. Straight up. If you aren't having fun while this thing is playing, you're boring. You're kind of lame. And you're just saying, all right? Just saying. I got nothing else to say. I'm not going to waste any more of your time because I want you to go listen to this thing. So, yeah, done. Bye-bye. 4.5 out of 5. It's incredible. Hell yes. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert, nor do I claim to be, so what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? And thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe right here so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown fucking immediately. And as always, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.